Your Royal Highness and ladies and gentlemen, as we speak, it is true that politicians and stakeholders of the financial world, they are reshaping the future of finance. But when people think about this reshaping of the future of finance, or even its actual presence today, it is true that most people think of other things than education. It is true that many people think of the financial turmoil where the financial world has gone through these last 5 years. It is true that most of the people think of the tremendous efforts that have been done to reorganize the European regulatory financial landscape, making it subject to an in-depth makeover. It is true that most people think of the fact that Europe is now putting into place a mechanism for financial supervision, that directives on enhanced consumer protection are making their way through Council and Parliament, and that no efforts are spared to make sure that a banking union is put into place to make EU member states less vulnerable to financial meltdown. So these are the challenges that most people consider as being key. And why on earth would we interpret the question on reshaping the future of finance as educating our children? Well, my presence here at a time where, and most of you have been very sympathetic, looking with a glaze, this Minister of Finance busy in budgetary talks, takes the time to discuss the education of children. I think most of you will understand that if my presence is here required, necessary, it is because I think that there is no contradiction whatsoever between the need today to do all these efforts that I've been explaining, but in the same time to make sure that in a sustainable fashion we try to avoid the mistakes of the past. And what better way to avoid the mistakes of the past than to take care of our children and the way in which they have a look at financial realities. The boy is the father of the man. It's a word that is used in a poem, and one might say the girl is the mother of the woman. But it is clear that when an 18 minus does not understand some of the financial issues, chances are that they will not understand it when they're older and when they have to make even more important decisions on the financial level. And in a world where finance is everywhere, we need to prepare our children to the real world. We need to make finance easier to understand and to strengthen financial education. In fact, as Madam said, we need to make sure that they can understand the consequences of their spending choices. We need them to understand what risk implies in a society where more and more people seem to be either too risk averse to be really entrepreneurial, or too careless when it comes to understanding that every choice implies a risk. Let me first tell you that in Belgium we already did some very concrete efforts to enhance consumer protection and to make the world of finance more accessible to all. First, on April 1st of last year, the so-called Twin Peaks reform on financial supervision entered into force. And along with the National Bank of Belgium, the FSMA was entrusted the supervision of the Belgian financial sector. And the central task of FSMA is, of course, to oversee the protection of consumers on financial products and services. I think that restoring confidence was the key purpose of the Twin Peaks reform. And other measures in the field of financial regulation served the same purpose. Not only did we transpose the UCITS 4 directive on investment funds, increasing the protection of people investing in funds, but also did we take measures to increase the transparency of saving accounts. Finally, a new reform is underway in very good cooperation with my dear colleague in charge of consumer protection, Johan van der Lanotte. And this reform will harmonize protection for consumers of investment products. So we have already been quite busy. But these measures, ladies and gentlemen, even if they can make markets more transparent and if they can enhance confidence in the financial sector, in order for them to really achieve their aim, they need to be supplemented. They need to be supplemented by another approach. Indeed, we need to improve on financial education. A recent poll in Belgium gave citizens 10 relatively straightforward questions on finance. It was called Hoe geldwijs bent u? On the site of a financial newspaper. Were not questions of high-tech finance. It were really questions of personal finance that we come across in our daily lives. For example, the situation of the tax exemption on the interests on your saving accounts. So really no big issues implying abbreviations that nobody understands, but real down-to-earth questions. Of course, I took the test as well. I will tell you what my score was afterwards. The average score, ladies and gentlemen, and that was not a test taken by youngsters, it was a test taken by the Belgian citizens, the average score was 4.6 out of 10. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a fail. That's a fail. Our education system does well, but we clearly need to work harder on financial education. And yes, in order for you to keep your confidence in the Minister of Finance, yes, I had a 10 on 10 score, but I had to guess once. I'm afraid to say. But it was a 10, okay. The conference that we are now assisting will help us to raise awareness for the need for financial education and for understandable finance. This conference can put these themes on the political agenda all over Europe. That's why I'm happy that the FSMA is hosting the regional CYFI conference and, of course, that Her Royal Highness Princess Mathilde is lending her very appreciated support to this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I wish you all a very productive exchange of ideas. Thank you.